Mu was puzzled. Why would touching a sweat towel bring bad luck for 3 years? The quality of this sweat towel was soft and had a smooth texture. It naturally had a fragrance as well, which was indeed good for wiping sweat. It must have been made from a unique kind of silk that was quite expensive. It was rare to see such textile in great ruins. Mu kept the sweat towel on his chest and played around with Junior Protector Sword and the sheath. He was pretty happy with it. The top half of the sword sheath of Junior Protector Sword was golden in color and was adorned with gems and pearls. At the mouth of the sheath, there was a carving of a fish dragon swallowing. Where the mouth of the fish dragon was the place where the treasure sword comes out from the sheath. The bottom half of the sword sheath was silver gray in color without any decorations or carvings. The tail of the sheath was sculpted with a dragonfish's tail, which was golden in color as well. Ding! Mu returned the sword to the sheath. His vital chi surged into the sword sheath and Junior Protector Sword was once again unsheathed. When unsheathing, a huge dragonfish appeared from the sword sheath and leaped above his head, spitting out the sword. Mu raised his hand and pulled out the sword from the fish mouth, feeling a sense of satisfaction. The sword sheath is truly a good item. It still has the apparition of a fish dragon. He returned his sword back into the sheath, and the fish dragon swallowed the Junior Protector Sword before disappearing into the sword sheath. Mu was over the moon and poured his vital chi into the sword sheath again. The fish dragon appeared again and spat out Junior Protector Sword. He pulled out the sword before putting it back in again, making the fish dragon fused back into the sword sheath. He played with the sword over and over again until Blind couldn't help but speak out. Moor, stop playing. Your granny had brought back another few livestock. You'll need to herd the cows. These few cows will be brought to Border Dragon City to be sold tomorrow. Mu gave a sound of acknowledgement and immediately returned to the village. He then brought the 6 cows out to herd with questions in his heart. Granny had just sold the livestock in the village a few days ago. How come there are 6 more cows? Where did these cows come from? As he walked out of the village, he saw village chief, apothecary and Blind gathered around, discussing something. Cripple was sitting on the side, dismantling the black banner. He threw the banner flag to Old Ma to put it up as a curtain for his carpenter shop. The pole was thrown to Granny C to oust the chicken. The next day, Mu prepared the cow cart and Granny C smiled. Moor, this time you can follow us into the city. Mu was astonished and delighted. He immediately carried his Junior Protector Sword, pig slaughtering knife, bamboo cane, iron hammer and jumped onto the cow cart. Blind walked calmly from behind and sat beside Granny C on the cow cart. The cart was filled with ironware made by Mute. There were beast skins and furs that Old Ma, Cripple and Mu had obtained from hunting. Among the goods were also 2 goats with their hooves tied up. The 3 big yellow cows harnessed in front of the cow cart were very strong. There were 3 more still tied at the back. The youth cracked his whip and the big yellow cows blinked their eyes innocently as they walked out of the village. This was the first time he entered the city. Therefore he couldn't help being excited. He was so excited that he felt like flying. He totally didn't notice the innocent looks from the big yellow cow and mountain goats. Border Dragon City was quite a distance from disabled elderly village, as far as 300 miles away. Therefore, entering the city was a major event. However, with great ruins being desolated, the roads weren't easy to travel on. They must first cross the water path before crossing several miles on land to reach Border Dragon City. Mu drove the cart to the side of the river only to see Cripple binding up a big bamboo raft. He carefully drove the cows onto the bamboo raft and Cripple released the mooring rope. The bamboo raft floated down along with the river as its speed grew faster. However, even with this speed, it would take them 4 to 5 days to reach Border Dragon Village. Floating a dozen miles downstream, Blind used his bamboo staff to tap on the water surface and the bamboo raft floated to the shore instantly. Mu didn't understand the reason for doing so and raised his head to look at the shore. However, he realized that was the direction of Grandma Temple, and there were many people from various villages already gathered there. Most of them were driving horse carts and cow carts as they waited by the riverside. Surging river was dangerous with rapid currents. There were many river monsters and ferocious big fish in the river. For this reason, all the villagers from various villages would normally choose to head to Border Dragon City on the same day. The more people there were, the easier it was for them to look out for one another. Many bamboo rafts were moored at the riverside. There were even more bamboo rafts that were sailing over. Not long after, there were a total of hundreds of bamboo rafts gathered together. Blind took out a few incenses and lit them against the wind before sticking them on the riverside. The other villagers also came forward to stick their incenses in the ground. The smoke of incense filled the air and floated on the river along with the gentle breeze. Suddenly, someone shouted out a chant loud and clear. More and more people started to sing loudly by the riverside. It was a river song, a song to worship the river gods. With you, I wandered down the 9 rivers. A whirlwind rose and the waters barred us with their waves. We rode in a water chariot with awning of lotus leaf, drawn by 2 dragons to pull at the sides. I climb Kunlun and look in all directions. My heart rises as I am agitated and distraught. Dusk is coming, but I am too sad to think of returning. Of the far shore are my thoughts as I lie awake and yearn. Oh, the ancient intonation revolved around the nasal and throat of numerous villagers as everyone joined in to sing. With their melodious and heroic voices, the spectacle made Qinmu felt indescribably moved. Suddenly, the water surface in front parted, as huge beasts revealed their heads from the water. Numerous huge beasts appeared from the bottom of the river. They had green-colored back and 4 huge webs that were like fins. They also had a head similar to fish but had a long nose which was like a spear. As the heads of the huge beasts in the water rose, they began to look like tiny hills. Their noses came close to the shore, and they took deep breaths in front of the incenses. All the incenses on the shore burned rapidly as the smoke entered the nostrils of these huge beasts. These huge beasts closed their eyes and puffed up a huge ring of smoke after a while, as though they were enjoying this very much. The villagers at the shore took the chance to drive their cow carts onto the green back of the huge beasts. Seeing the current situation, Qinmu also immediately drove the cart up one of the backs of the huge beasts. Granny C took up a big piece of meat she had prepared earlier and threw it into the water. The huge beast ate the piece of meat and let out a loud cry before flapping its 4 webs and carrying the cow cart along with the 3 people on it downstream. Behind them, the huge greenback beasts let out long cries that fluctuated up and down as they accompanied the tune of the villagers singing while carrying the villagers forward. These are strange beasts that are only found in surging river. They are called river carriers. Granny C continued. River carriers are the river gods that reside in the heart of the villagers. They like the smell of incense and beef. What they love the most is to listen to songs that praise them. People living on the side of the river can attract them over just by lighting a few incenses. By offering beef to them, we can make the river carriers bring us down the river. If the river carrier is hungry on the way there, we will have to feed it more beef or else it will go on a strike and throw us into the water. Qinmu clicked his tongue in wonder. The swimming speed of the river carriers was very fast. In addition, they were swimming downstream as they braced the waves with the wind blowing in their face. It was even faster than steeds galloping on land. Qinmu did some calculations, and with the speed the river carriers were going at, they could reach Border Dragon City before nightfall. In surging river, the cries of the huge river carriers fluctuated up and down along with the mountains on both shores. The sun shone on their faces and the surface of the river shimmered with golden ripples. Qinmu looked into the distance and suddenly felt his body and mind becoming endlessly vast, as if every single one of the golden river, green mountains, blue sky, and ravines were all concealed in his chest. This was a magical land with magical people and river beasts. Despite it being barren lands and wild rivers that had shrews and wicked people to the people outside of great ruins, as far as Qinmu was concerned, this was his homeland. In the evening, as the sun sets west, Qinmu saw various small docks on the side of the river. The river carriers gradually slowed down their speed and swam to the docks. Granny C rose and smiled. We're almost at Border Dragon City. Moor, drive the cart down and let us quickly head into the city. Qinmu stopped the bamboo raft and drove the cart ashore. Looking back, he saw the other river carriers reaching the shore and the people of the other villagers also quickly driving their horse carts and cow carts down, heading in the same direction. The cow cart traveled a mile forward and climbed over a small hillside. There was a slope ahead, so Qinmu jumped off a cow cart as he planned to guide the big yellow cow steadily, so the cart wouldn't slide off the slope. However, his heart suddenly jolted as he stared blankly at the sight in front. Under this hillside, there was a huge path leading towards a simple but majestic city. The four corners of the city wall had stone pillars that were 100 yards thick and 500 yards long. Every stone pillar had a golden divine dragon coiling around it, which was sculpted and inlaid with golden leaves. Therefore they had a brilliant gold shimmer. The city gate tower of this city was also constructed in the shape of a dragon's head. The city gate was the dragon's mouth, while the cornices of the city gate towers were like two dragons' horns, making it both malevolent and domineering. Border Dragon City, one of the rare flourishing lands of Great Ruins. Great Ruins lacked resources. Seasonings were all precious commodities that have to be bought from the outside world, and not anyone could go to the outside world. Only flourishing land like Border Dragon City would have merchants coming from the outside world to bring their goods into trade. At the same time, they would bring the precious goods from Great Ruins and sell them to the outside world. The divine dragon pillars here are way bigger than the stone statues in our village. With heartfelt admiration, Qin exclaimed, "If we could steal it away and place it at our village entrance, it would definitely be impressive." Granny C rolled her eyes at him. If we could steal it, Granny would have done it a long time ago. Unless you can make all the old fellows in the village take action, it would be impossible to steal it away. Move quickly, the sky is almost dark. We'll have to quickly enter the city. The wheels on the cart rattled as Qin drove the cow cart into the city. Looking around curiously, everything in Border Dragon City intrigued him. In the city, there was an endless stream of horses and carriages. There were people everywhere as well. It was the first time he had seen so many people ever since he was born. Furthermore, there were also numerous well-dressed girls as they stood on top of the buildings, waving their arms enthusiastically at him, calling him to go up to play with them. The people in the city sure are cordial. Qin was very excited as he waved back at the girls and shouted, "After I finish selling my goods, I will come back to play with big sisters." Blind didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Moo, these girls upstairs are girls who took a wrong step. They aren't really trying to play with you. If you go up, you will be stripped of your skin and you will even have your bone marrow sucked out." Qin jumped in shock. Wrong step? Grandpa Blind, they're all standing steadily and doesn't look like they took any wrong step. Could they be demons like Woman Wu? Woman Wu had said that it wanted to play some shameful stuff with me, but I didn't agree with it. Blind also didn't know how to explain this to Qin, so he just laughed coarsely. This city is also called the Dragon City that never sleeps. At night, there are lanterns that light up the night streets. Every village within the radius of a few thousands of miles would gather here to trade. "Moo or Granny, I shan't stay with you two anymore. Granny, do you have some pocket money?" He propped himself upright with his bamboo cane and stretched out one hand with a face that was full of smiles. Granny C pretended not to see it. Blind stretched his hands to grab the beast skins on the cart and smiled. "Moo, lend me 2 beast skins. When I win some money from gambling, I will return your money with interest on top." Qin smiled. "Feel free to take them, there's no need to return. Don't give it to him." Granny C scolded angrily. This old geezer would always run off to the gambling den every time he comes here. Every time he would lose until he becomes totally broke. The 2 beast skins are enough for us to buy plenty of seasonings. It's better to do that than letting him throw them into the river. I can at least hear 2 plops even if I throw them into the river. Blind immediately draped the 2 beast skins on his body and took off, vanishing into the crowd. Granny C stomped her feet in anger. Qin asked bewilderingly, "Granny, what's a gambling den?" Granny C flew into a rage. "You wanted to play with girls who took a wrong step and now you want to go to the gambling den. Moo, you are learning bad things." Qin was puzzled. "Don't be angry, Granny, I won't play with them as you wish." "That's right, Granny, is there a cat house here?" The cat house hallmaster, Fu Qingyun of Heavenly Devil Cult, said that I can find her at places that have a cat house. Granny C stared at him and sneered. "Now you want to visit a low-grade brothel? You better stay far away from Fu Qingyun, that coquettish fox." Qin was bewildered. He was clearly going to a cat house to find people. When did it become a low-grade brothel? What kind of place is a brothel anyway? There are so many rules in the city, I can't do this and can't do that, the youth grumbled. The young and the old drove the cow cart into the market. It was very crowded here and there were all kinds of goods on sale. There were also people of different races wearing strange and unique clothing, dazzling Qin eye. Very soon, Granny C sold the ironware and skins from the cart for some seasonings. The merchant should have been from the outside world, as he had a unique accent and claimed he was from Eternal Peace Empire. Even though Granny C was a woman, she was used to being extravagant and wasn't good at haggling prices. She sold the ironware that Mute had forged cheaply, and even the beast's skins and furs didn't fetch a good price. However, the merchants had good consciences and felt like they had taken small advantage of Granny C and Qin Mu. Therefore they gave them another small sack of dragon coins that contained 100 of them. Dragon coin was the currency of Border Dragon City. On the coins were imprints of a dragon pillar that was similar to the dragon pillars on the four corners of Border Dragon City. Qin Mu felt the coins were blessed with a unique formation. The coins should have been forged with a unique technique to prevent people from imitating it. The two of them then sold off the cows and the goats. The cows and the goats seemed to know their fate and couldn't stop crying as they bit onto Qin Mu's clothes, refusing to let go. Qin Mu hesitated, but Granny C whispered, "They are all bad guys." Qin Mu jumped in shock. These few cows and goats were really humans turned by Granny C using devil nature technique. They are a bunch of bandits. Granny C's voice was soft like silk. "Remember the time I brought you out of the village to deliver the baby? When we were there, the whole village was slaughtered. These few years I have been searching for traces of these bandits but was never successful. However, just a few days ago, I finally found them." Qin Mu's hearts tremored. He pulled his shirt back and let the merchants drag these cows and goats away. What these livestock might face was either to be slaughtered or to plow the land. Even though he felt that it wasn't right to do this, he couldn't say what Granny C did was wrong too. Great Ruins was such a place. The strong prey on the weak. What Granny C did may be extreme, but it was better than doing nothing. He was even somewhat touched. The incident had created a huge impact on Qin Mu, and never would he thought that over 10 years later, Granny would still think of taking revenge for the villagers who had died tragically. The two of them bought some rolls of textile and fine wine and brought them to the inn where they were staying at. Granny C suddenly stopped in her tracks when she saw a shop that was selling rouge and powder. Good stuff. Only this kind of exquisite powder can match up to Granny's exceptional beauty. The old woman was over the moon as her eyes lit up. With air leaking out of her mouth, she caused a bunch of maidens to chuckle non-stop. Granny C turned a deaf ear to their laughter and bought a bunch of cosmetics, spending almost all the money they had left. Glancing at Qin Mu, who was standing on the side and carrying all the big and small boxes, she felt somewhat bad. She dug into the coin pouch to take out the last dragon coins and stuffed them into Qin Mu's pocket. She then said softly, "Mu, or go treat yourself to something good. Go buy the items you like. Don't go just yet. Help me deliver the cosmetics to the inn first." Qin Mu delivered the cosmetics to the inn, where the inn owner greeted them respectfully and said that he had prepared the guest rooms for them. Qin Mu sized up the inn owner suspiciously and his heart jolted slightly. The inn owner winked at him and said softly, "Subordinate pays his respect to young cult master. 360 halls of Heavenly Devil Cult has dipped their hands into all professions. To think they even opened an inn in Border Dragon City." Qin Mu composed himself and walked into the guest room. After putting down the items they had bought, Granny C immediately chased him out. "It's rare for you to come out once in a while, therefore you should go enjoy yourself. Oh, and remember to spend your dragon coin wisely." Qin Mu took his dragon coin and left. Border Dragon City was even charming at night with the glow of lantern lights. Various peddlers and people from various villages had come out to sell all kinds of strange items. The street was filled with vast crowds that created a sea of bobbing heads. "My daughter and I are villagers from Cow Family Village, and we just had to stop by here. We don't covet titles or money. It's just that my daughter has reached a marriageable age and had no one in mind yet, so I would like to find a son-in-law through a martial arts competition. I seek a good man with an outstanding martial skill." Qin Mu heard this voice and stopped his steps. Looking towards the arena, he did not know whether to laugh or cry. So many people were there that it even seemed dangerous passing through the impenetrable crowd. The father and daughter of Cow Family Village are here to find a son-in-law with a martial competition again. The last time they were finding a son-in-law was 3 years ago at Grandma Temple. Could it be that they still haven't found anyone even after 3 years? What can I buy with 1 dragon coin? Qin Mu was just thinking about it when he heard someone shout, selling priceless treasure at just 3 copper coins. He looked towards the source of the voice and saw many people in the alley putting out items that looked strange. They were all broken bricks and tiles. Could those broken bricks and tiles all be priceless treasures? Why are priceless treasures sold so cheaply? Qin Mu was astonished and secretly opened his heaven's eyes to take a look. He couldn't help but shake his head in disappointment. These items were really just broken bricks and tiles. Most of them were scavenged from the ruins of great ruins. They had not even the slightest spirit energy, and were far too inferior compared to treasures like spirit weapons. Even if you give them to people as a gift, they might not even want it, much less selling them for 3 copper coins. However, there were still numerous people looking like practitioners standing in front of the stalls and picking out items, hoping that they could really find a treasure among them. Qin Mu looked from one stall to another and his heart moved slightly. He did find some good items. On some of the stalls there were shattered pieces of weapons that caught his eyes. The shattered pieces of the weapons gave off a faint glow. They should be pieces from spirit weapons that have some worth. He went forward to ask but ended up speechless. A shattered piece of a spirit weapon actually cost dozens of dragon coins. This is a scam, right? Qin Mu continued to look around and saw a stall that had laid out dozens of crocs on a goat skin. Most of the crocs were broken. They either had their lids missing or were cracked in some corners. However, when he looked with his heaven's eyes, these crocs gave off an extremely intense glow that far surpassed the shattered pieces of spirit weapons. It was even stronger than the spirit weapons he was selling. How much are the crocs? Qin Mu went up to ask. 3 copper coins for one. The stall owner replied. Qin Mu took out the dragon coin from his pocket and said embarrassingly, I only have 1 dragon coin, can you sell all of them to me? The stall owner was astonished and elated as he immediately snatched over the dragon coin, packing up the crocs and handed them over to Qin Mu with a smile. They're all yours. Silly boy. The stall owners at the side laughed softly. He doesn't even know a dragon coin is worth 1,000 copper coins. The stall owner gripped tightly onto the dragon coin and immediately said, Little brother, you can't go back on your words. Qin Mu only learned the worth of a dragon coin now and refreshingly smiled. Since you and I had a deal, of course I won't go back on my words. I feel it is worth it to pay a dragon coin for these crocs. The stall owner exhaled in relief and was about to leave when a crisp voice sounded out. Hold it! How much are these crocs, little brother? Qin Mu raised his head and saw a few luxurious men walking over. In between them was a youth who was dressed even more luxuriously. The youth had delicate features and some baby fat on his cheeks. Compared to Qin Mu, he had more of a graceful air around him, as he stared at the goatskin with interest. Divine arts practitioners? A stall owner cried out. Qin Mu also cried out. You're the chubby fatty 7th young master from the Eternal Peace Empire's ship. Chubby fatty 7th young master? The youth was stunned for a second and immediately recognized Qin Mu. Slightly embarrassed, he gritted his teeth. Who's the chubby fatty 7th young master? Qin Mu had no interest in the chubby fatty 7th young master, and looked at the few people behind him. These people were extraordinary and have vital qi flowing out of their bodies. One of them had a green dragon coiling around his body. The dragon's head was higher than his head, and was looking at its surrounding vigilantly with its bright eyes. This person obviously was a green dragon spirit body, who had awakened his 6 directions divine treasure. He was a divine arts practitioner that has his vital qi showing its form at all times. Despite Qin Mu having dense vital qi and could also make his vital qi show its form, he could only do it during battle. Only when his vital qi was extremely strong and mixed with blood and qi could he let others see his vital qi. However, it was different for divine arts practitioners. Divine arts practitioners could make their vital qi show its form whenever they liked. A divine art could be concealed within their vital qi, and this divine art could be unleashed the very instant they meet an enemy's attack to counter the incoming enemy. Qin Mu had once heard Granny C say that spirit embryo realms were only considered martial arts practitioners. Only when one cultivates to 5 elements realm could they be considered a grandmaster and be proficient in the changes of 5 elements, the evolving battle techniques, spells and other such moves into divine arts. And once the wall of 6 directions divine treasure was broken, one would become a divine arts practitioner and be able to use divine arts. Even though Border Dragon City wasn't small and had a lot of divine arts practitioners, to be able to make divine arts practitioners follow behind was pretty impressive. Of course I'm selling these Crocs. Qin gave it some thought and set a price, 100 dragon coins for one. He had originally thought that he had asked too much, but he didn't expect the chubby fatty 7th young master to smile warmly and nod. That's cheap deal. There's a total of 36 Crocs in your goatskin, so it's a total of 3,600 dragon coins. High official Ding, settle the payment with him. A person behind him bowed and replied, understood. He then came forward and closed the account with Qin. The stall owners and the visitors in the alley were stunned and their breaths became ragged. The man who had sold the Crocs to Qin earlier had his eyes twitching violently and almost fainted. He looked intensely at the Crocs, but he didn't dare to snatch them. Even though a dragon coin wasn't large in size, 3,600 of them were still quite a large amount and weighed over 10 pounds altogether. Qin slung the coin pouch onto the hilt of his pig slaughtering knife and exclaimed silently, "The chubby fatty 7th young master sure is generous." 7th young master's eyes lit up as his gaze landed on the pig slaughtering knife on Qin's back. "If you're willing to sell me your knife, I can give you an even better price." Qin shook his head. "My knife is way better than those Crocs, so I'm not selling." "That's true. Just the materials used for your knife had already surpassed those used for the Crocs." 7th young master gave the Crocs to a follower beside him and smiled. These Crocs were created by a divine arts practitioner of 6 directions realm. There are a total of 36 spirit weapons, therefore are named 36 Heavenly Stars Crocs, which is able to form Big Dipper Devil Purge formation. Even if it's slightly broken, the power is still there. These Crocs are useless to me anyway, and I'm only thinking of bringing them out of great ruins to sell to those children of the nobility and make a fortune. I had seen the 36 Heavenly Stars Crocs, therefore I recognized them. Your eyesight seems to better than others. Could it be that you have also seen it before? Behind him a follower coughed. 7th young master, you're a noble in disguise, therefore it isn't safe here. 7th young master got annoyed. Aren't all of you being too controlling? There's no more joy in me coming out to play. After he had finished grumbling, he shook his head and left. Qin knew he was at Qin Feiyue's side. Qin Feiyue was also very respectful to him, therefore his status wasn't ordinary. It was natural that these followers didn't want him to be in danger. Just as he was about to leave, the stall owner who sold him the Crocs suddenly grabbed onto the corner of his shirt and shouted, "Don't go! My Crocs were worth over 3,000 dragon coins, yet you want to buy them with just 1 coin? You'll have to compensate me." He tried to grab Qin's coin pouch after saying that. Qin frowned slightly. Suddenly, his hair stood up as he felt a sense of danger. A person closed in on him in the alley. Flipping over his sleeves, he revealed a strange-looking weapon. It was like 2 curved blades placed together that was unusually sharp. The person's palm faced downwards and the strange weapon stayed on his palm and didn't drop down. Instead, it started to whirl and slice towards Qin's neck. Qin's vital chi surged into his feet, and he moved backward suddenly. The stall owner was about to grab his coin pouch, but Qin had already retreated several yards away. With the reflection of the knife flashing, the guy was like a shadow sticking close to Qin. The weird knife on his palm flew up and down. Qin took a hurried look and saw a thread connected to the strange knife. On the sides of the strange knife were 2 curved blades. The handle was in the middle of the 2 blades, where the fine thread was connected to. Using thread with refined chi and using chi to manipulate knife? He's a martial arts practitioner. This practitioner's knife skills was extremely peculiar. His footwork was slippery like an eel tunneling around. With knife skills as his main choice, it was especially dangerous when he executed his skill in this small alley. The snow-white knife light came top down in an arc and its power was not weak. At the same time, Qin saw other people were also eager to give it a try as they stood up one by one. It was obvious that this coin pouch had stirred the greed in the hearts of these people. Over 3,000 dragon coins was definitely a big fortune. Enough to incite people's greed to kill. I've got to end this quickly. Qin abruptly stopped his steps as his vital chi surged boundlessly into his fists. His feet moved relatively to the vital chi that reached both his arms and circulated into his fingers. Clenching his fingers into a fist, His fingers flicked out like arrows released from a strong bow just as his fist collided with the strange knife. Thunderclap 8 strikes second form. Thunder fingers of the pipa player. Clank. His first finger flicked out and the force of his finger gave a loud whistle, flicking away the blade that was spinning rapidly. The second finger flicked out and the practitioner's vital chi thread was broken apart. Qin Mu's third finger flicked out and hit the palm of the practitioner, who gave a loud grunt as a large hole opened up in his palm, badly mangling it. Every finger of Qin Mu's contained extreme dense vital chi. Even though his vital chi couldn't unleash power like White Tiger vital chi, it was extremely dense, and combining it with the astonishing strength of his body, 3 fingers were enough to break the attack of that practitioner. He then clenched his hand into a fist again and gave a punch towards that practitioner's chest. That practitioner's body warped from the strength of this punch and flew backward. Spring thunder on the lonely East Sea. Qin Mu's feet exerted force and rushed to the face of the practitioner before he even landed on the ground. The eyes of the practitioner revealed an expression of fear. However, he was in midair and couldn't defend. At the moment, 2 martial arts practitioners on both sides of the alley saw Qin Mu rushing to the practitioner, and their eyes lit up. With no explanation, both of them burst forth and attacked Qin Mu. Bang! 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 Before the 2 practitioners could even unleash their first attack, they saw Qin Mu's fist becoming bigger and bigger. It was as if a barbarous ground dragon had smacked them straight in the face. Their heads flipped backward and they went into the wall. The rest of their bodies below their neck hung from the walls. The wall had spiderweb cracks from the impact. The practitioner who was punched in the chest by Qin Mu suffered another heavy blow. This punch was even more vicious than the first, causing him to fly back at an even greater speed. In the alley, a figure flashed and several banging sounds rang out. 7th young master and the few divine arts practitioner were still walking out of the alley when they heard the sounds behind them. They turned around, revealing expression of astonishment. The practitioner who was blown away for the 3rd time flew towards the 7th young master. The few divine arts practitioners frowned and were about to do something when 7th young master smiled. "There's no need for that, we'll avoid him." The few of them turned away to let him pass, but they saw that Qin Mu was sticking close behind the practitioner. His punches were insane like lightning, coupling strength and gentleness. As the last punch was unleashed, the practitioner was blown out of the alley and crashed into the wall opposite of the alley. The wall was broken by the butt of the practitioner and his body was stuck inside the wall. His limbs drooped powerlessly and hung there unable to move. Behind Qin Mu, over 10 practitioners had their heads stuck in the walls and their bodies hanging outside. With their flailing limbs, they were unable to get themselves out. Impressive skill! The few divine arts practitioners exclaimed in admiration. One of them whispered, "Young master, that man sprinted like huge raging waves that can split the sky. It's a type of extremely powerful battle technique. If his punches and kicks earlier could surpass their limits, they would become divine arts." 7th young master was astonished. What he used was a battle technique. A top-notch technique among the battle techniques. 7th young master gently nodded his head. "I've heard a story of that time. Imperial Preceptor had discussed the path with the battle technique school back then, and slaughtered many great pillars of that cultivated battle technique. From then on, battle techniques could no longer be viewed similarly to divine arts and was classified as heresy. Many heretics escaped into great ruins. Could he be one of the heretics' disciple?" Another follower whispered, "Border Dragon City isn't eternal peace. There are crooks mixed in with the honest folks, and they are mostly vicious people who were at the end of their rope and no way out. Therefore we have the duty to be absolutely careful. There should be surviving members from back then standing before this youth. Young master, let us quickly meet the general." Qin Mu didn't kill them ruthlessly and held back half of his strength. However, the sight of over 10 practitioners hanging on the wall was still pretty terrifying. Of course, this was nothing to him. When fighting with Old Ma and the rest in the village, and when fighting with Devil Ape and who linger outside the village, he had always used his full strength. "It isn't safe carrying so many dragon coins on my body. Why don't I just buy some stuff and return the rest of the dragon coins to Granny when I return to the inn?" The youth didn't bother himself with what happened and bought some more fine silk fabric, ordering people to send them to the inn. He had planned to prepare more clothing for Old Ma, village chief and the rest. Qin Mu bought some more interesting items and planned to gift them to Old Ma, Cripple and the rest before returning to the inn. Unexpectedly, Granny C wasn't in the room and had gone out without him knowing. Blind had also vanished without a trace. Since it's a rare chance to come here, it would be better if I take a look around to widen my horizons. Qin Mu took out 100 dragon coins and hid the rest of the money carefully before walking out of the inn to take a look around. Border Dragon City was especially bustling at night and really expanded his horizons. There were martial competitions, arena challenges, operas, lion dances, and even people seeking revenge. He subconsciously walked to the heart of Border Dragon City. The structures here were even more majestic. There are many ancient structures that were left behind by people living in great ruins before the darkness had invaded. The temples and shrines were extraordinary. Qin Mu awakened his heaven's eyes and looked at the ancient structures, clicking his tongue in wonder. The god statues here may look like normal statues of gods, but in his eyes, they were gods giving off lofty radiance. He studied them one by one and didn't have any fear towards these gods. He didn't disrespect the god statues and only admired the skill of the godly person who had sculpted the god statues. Border Dragon City was built on a huge ruin. The stone statue was made from the hands of the devil and the gods from a distant age. Based on the technique of sculpting, Qin Mu could see the natural and unforced works of gods, making him see a splendid and magnificent divine art in his days. It seems one can comprehend many techniques looking at these stone statues. Qin Mu exclaimed in admiration as a middle-aged man suddenly walked over, smiling. "The youth from the countryside, do you want to earn money? I have a great deal for you. The City Lord's Manor is looking for people to have an arena fight. If you win, you'll get 100 dragon coins." Qin Mu shook his head. The middle-aged man went to search for other people and found a youth who went into the City Lord's Manor excitedly. An arena fight in City Lord's Manor? What is the Border Dragon City Lord planning? Qin Mu was puzzled. At this moment, a voice laughed loudly. Ever since Heavenly Devil Cult Master Li Tianqing had died, Cult Mistress had always been elusive and vanished without a trace. Never would I expect the Mistress to actually visit my Border Dragon City. For Mistress to come from afar, your presence brings light to my humble dwelling. His voice was extremely loud, proving that his cultivation was extremely dense. Qin Mu's eardrums rang from the vibration, and even many passers-by fainted from the vibration. Qin Mu was astonished. Cult Mistress? Could it be Granny? City Lord is too modest. An extremely pleasant voice sounded out which was incomparably alluring. When Qin Mu heard this voice, he felt his throat becoming dry as if countless of devils in his heart had jumped out and started dancing around. Many people on the street suddenly started dancing around as if they were drunk. They were laughing loudly and had a crazed look on their warped face. Only after some time did these people regain their senses and looked at one another. Not knowing what had just happened, a deluge of heavenly flowers fell from the sky, being exceptionally beautiful. Among the diverse petals, a beautiful woman descended from the sky while stepping on the flowers. The petals fell and withered, giving off a tinkling sound as one of them fell in front of Qin Mu. He stretched his hand out, but the petal melted away like a snowflake. Transformed from vital qi? Qin Mu was stunned for a while when he saw the appearance of the beautiful woman. His heart suddenly started to pound furiously. Learning painting and calligraphy from Def, he knew Def had an incomparable brushwork that could draw all the beauty in the world. However, even with Def's brush skills, he was afraid that Def would have difficulty drawing out the appearance and distinct style of the beautiful woman. Looking at her, Qin Mu finally understood what it meant to be incomparably beautiful. An ancient poetic essay that Def taught him subconsciously came up in his mind. Her actions were as dim as the moon mantled in filmy clouds, and as restless as snow whirled by the driving wind. She struck a balance between plump and frail. The tall and short of her were justly proportioned. Her shoulders were shaped as if by carving and waist narrow as though bound by white cords. Around her slim throat and curving neck, the pale flesh was open to view. There were no scented ointments overlaying it and no coat of leaden powder applied. With her cloud-bank coiffure rising steeply and long eyebrows delicately arched, her red lips shed their light abroad, her white teeth gleaming within, her bright eyes skillful at glancing, and her dimples were round off the base of the cheek. Her rare form was wonderfully enchanting, her manner quiet, her pose demure. With her gentle heart and broad mind, she was graceful with every word she spoke. Her robe was strange with an appearance that was seldom seen. Her face and figure lived up to her paintings. Wrapped in the soft rustle of silken garments, she decked herself with flowery earrings of jasper and jade. Gold and jade hairpins adorned her head, and strings of bright pearls made her body shine. She walked with slippers fashioned for distant wandering, with airy trains of the mist like gauze in tow. It seemed that only this ancient poetic essay was able to describe her looks and bearing. This woman was too beautiful to be a mortal creation. One would never be able to draw such beauty with a brush, much less catch her magnificent style. Was she really Granny C? Could it be that Granny killed a beautiful woman and wore her skin? Qin Mu shivered uncontrollably as he thought of something bad. Hey, the one that herds cows. Suddenly, a girl's voice came from the back. Qin Mu turned around to look, but he didn't see anyone. Raising his head up, he saw a girl sitting on the temple's eaves. Her dress went all the way to her ankles, revealed spotlessly white skin that was very exquisite. Her feet almost dangled onto Qin Mu's head. Her toes playfully curled up and down as she swung her legs. The girl's eyes curved like a crescent moon as she said, "The one that herds cows, come up. You can see further and clearer up here." Qin Mu leaped onto the temple's eaves and sat down beside her. He felt a familiar fragrance on the girl's body and was bewildered. Two beautiful locks of hair were combed nicely and were resting on her cheeks, shaping her face to look like a sunflower seed. Her bright eyes and white teeth became crescent moons whenever she smiled. She then giggled. "Am I chubby?" Qin Mu nodded his head and replied honestly, "The hair combed at the sides of your face is to make your face look thinner. However, if you part the hair, you'll still look chubby." The girl kicked him with her leg resentfully. Her shoes had been taken off and were placed beside her. "Bare feet," she grumbled angrily. "My chubby face is by nature, I can't do anything about that." Both of them dangled their legs under the temple's eaves as Qin Mu used his hands to support him. Qin Mu was bewildered as he kept having the feeling that the girl beside him looked familiar. Her emitted fragrance was even more familiar. In front of them was the city lord's manor. The gate suddenly opened wide as 100 people walked out grandiosely. The atmosphere of every one of them was exceptionally powerful. They each had an imposing and impressive appearance that was out of the ordinary. They were all outstanding divine arts practitioners of Border Dragon City with great prestige. The man leading them was tall and sturdy. He had the eyes of a tiger and waist of a bear. He moved like a dragon and his footsteps were like a tiger. He had a grandeur that made hearts palpitate and his mustache exploded to the sides. He may not be handsome, but he was very manly. The image of a demon god appeared behind his back. That was an 8-armed god who was holding 8 kinds of weapons. It should be a vital chi apparition with an extraordinary bearing. Ever since Cult Mistress had stolen the Devil Bible, great educational Heavenly Devil scriptures from Heavenly Devil Cult and escaped from Heavenly Devil Cult's sacred elders and sacred patriarch Chase, you had entered great ruins and vanished without a trace. Border Dragon City Lord laughed heartily. "I was worrying over the mistress's safety day and night, and never would I have guessed that the mistress is still safe and sound. This really makes me relieved. I guess mistress must have been studying the great educational Heavenly Devil scriptures thoroughly after going into seclusion for 40 years. Now that you have come out from seclusion, you shouldn't be afraid of Heavenly Devil Cult's elders or their patriarch, am I right?" Heavenly Devil Cult Mistress had a cheerful talk with Border Dragon City Lord as if they were old friends. Border Dragon City Lord didn't dare to go close to her and invited, "Mistress, coincidentally my humble home is currently holding a banquet to entertain my honored guest. I've heard of Mistress' arrival and we are honored by your presence. I also can't let my honored guest wait for too long, so why don't Mistress come into my humble home and we can all have a chat?" The beautiful woman gave a gentle laugh. "That's fine with me. I am also interested to see who City Lord's honorable guests are. Pardon me for disturbing. Mistress must be joking. Please come in." That's the Border Dragon City Lord's 8-fold Heavenly God technique. The girl whispered beside Qin Mu. It was said that Border Dragon City Lord Fu Yundi had cultivated to the life and death realm. He had successfully managed to break the wall of the life and death divine treasure, and is one of the rare experts of great ruins. Qin Mu looked at Border Dragon City Lord Fu Yundi. Fu Yundi's eightfold heavenly god technique was indeed extraordinary. If he executed it, the heavenly god will definitely have 8 faces and be able to see all the things around him. He will also be able to attack all the enemies around him. Qin Mu exclaimed in admiration. It's indeed a powerful technique. The girl asked with interest. You who herds cows are also very powerful. What technique are you cultivating? Overlord Body 3 Elixir Technique. Qin Mu said. My name's Qin Mu, what's yours? The girl curled the hair around her ear and smiled. My name's Yushio. Qin Mu asked. Yushio from Elegant and Graceful Asterisk? The girl was astonished. How do you know my surname is Ling? Ling Yushio? That's a nice name. Qin Mu praised and continued. If your face was slightly thinner, you would fit your name perfectly. Ling Yushio gave him another kick resentfully and put on her shoes before jumping down. I'm ignoring you. She landed on the ground and took 2 steps forward before turning her head back bewilderedly. Why aren't you following me? Qin Mu was confused. I thought you said you were ignoring me, so why do I have to follow? Petty. Ling Yushio waved for him to come over and giggled. I have a way to enter the City Lord's manor. Now the City Lord's manor is very bustling. Let us go and play. Don't you want to see what the big shots of Great Ruins are doing and talking about? Qin Mu's heart slightly stirred and he jumped down from the temple's eaves and quickly caught up to her, asking her curiously, how do you enter the City Lord's manor? We obviously enter with just an honor. Ling Yushio led the way and came to the gate to the City Lord's manor. There were 4 divine arts practitioners guarding the door who didn't say anything when they walked past, and allowed them to enter the manor. Qin Mu was astonished and whispered, Sister, are you the daughter of Border Dragon City Lord? He wishes. Ling Yushio spat. My dad has a bigger influence than him. I can enter and leave this Border Dragon City Lord's manor at will. Over there in the front is the river suppression floor, where Fu Yundi is hosting the honored guests. Qin Mu looked forward and first, he saw a huge lake with clear bluish ripples. Pearls as big as wicker baskets were placed in the pool, and they gave off a gentle glow that was bouncing off the surface of the lake. There were almost many female servants carrying a lantern and standing on the shore motionlessly, lighting up the entire lake in this manner. River suppression floor was built on the side of the mountain that was beside the lake that was shaped like a goose. Looking from afar, the interior of the building was a dazzling sight as it revealed the feeling of suddenly getting rich and overnight. The Border Dragon City Lord wished more than anything else to paste gold leaves all over river suppression floor, seriously indulging in a life of luxury. In the river suppression floor, a few female dancers were dancing gracefully in the middle of the room, their sleeves fluttering along with their fragrant skirts. With their dance accompanied by music and drum beats, it was a very beautiful sight. In the middle of the lake was a flat square stage that was 300 yards wide. At the bottom, an extremely thick pillar was supporting the stage. In the sky floated a few gloomy lanterns that lit up the entire stage like daylight. Sounds of explosions came from the stage, as 2 youths were currently sparring. Qin Mu came to a halt and revealed an expression of astonishment. Both of the 2 youths were very strong and had extraordinary abilities. One of the youth was the one on the street who had been pulled by the middle-aged man with 100 dragon coins to fight the other youth in the arena. He should be a white tiger spirit body and his white tiger vital chi was in a golden copper state. There were 2 colors on his body being a radiant gold and a dark brown ancient copper. When his opponent hit his body, it gave off sonorous sounds similar to the sound made by the copper Buddha when it was moving. A series of sparks could even be seen. Making use of white tiger vital chi to cultivate his body to this extent was considered extremely brilliant. It was no wonder he dared to enter the City Lord's manor to fight in the arena. His opponent's age wasn't old neither and was similar to Qin Mu. Being only 14 to 15 years of age, his attacks were extremely ruthless. He was using 8 swords where each hand held 1 sword. They weren't his real hands but were his vital chi. He was using vital chi to control 8 swords at once. Eightfold Heavenly God Technique? Qin Mu asked softly. The Eightfold Heavenly God Technique that the youth executed was different from the Eightfold Heavenly God Technique, which the Border Dragon City Lord, Fu Yundi, had executed. Fu Yundi had already cultivated out his apparition where an Eightfold Heavenly God stood behind him. The youth's Eightfold Heavenly God Technique hasn't reached that level yet. but the method of circulation complemented the method used by Fu Yundi. Ling Yuxiu replied, "He's the son of Fu Yundi called Tingyue. Come to think of it, he is also a pitiful person. He didn't have a mother since young and was brought up single-handedly by Fu Yundi." Kai. Two of Fu Tingyue's swords stabbed into the eyes of his opponent. The two swords then spun forcefully, grinding the eyes of the opponent. His opponent's white tiger vital chi was extremely strong and have cultivated his body like steel. However, he didn't cultivate his eyes yet and let out a wretched scream when he was blinded. Fu Tingyue didn't kill him straight away, nor did he stop there. Instead, he slowly cut the blinded youth, severing his fingers one by one as he gave an expression of excitement. Qin Mu frowned and turned his head towards Ling Yuxiu. "He's a pitiful person with no mother?" Ling Yuxiu also jumped in shock and immediately pulled his hand to bring him to river suppression floor while smiling. "I'm getting hungry, let's go grab something nice to eat. I'm also a guest here, so I can't bother everyone too much." Holding onto the girl's hand, Qin Mu felt the softness and smoothness of her hands, causing his heart to flutter for a second. However, Fu Tingyue's ruthlessness still made him extremely uncomfortable. Turning back to look at the flat stage on the lake, Fu Tingyue didn't stop even after cutting off all 10 fingers of his opponent. Instead, he continued to cut the wrist of his opponent, becoming more excited than a wild beast. "This is a lunatic. But come to think of it, this young master Fu Tingyue seems to have some connections with me." Qin Mu pondered inside his head. Back when Granny C picked him up from the riverside, she was scared he would die young. Therefore she infiltrated into Border Dragon City and kidnapped the city lord's mistress who had just given birth. After turning her into a milk cow to nurse Qin Mu, she helped him get over the stage of premature death. The child that the city lord's mistress had given birth to was most likely Fu Tingyue. Qin Mu grew up feeding on his mother's milk, and that's where their connections lie. Qin Mu turned back his head, and there was already no way of survival for the youth on the flat stage. For 100 dragon coins, he came into the city lord's manor to fight in the arena. He naturally had some ability if he dared to come in the first place. However, he didn't expect to lose his life here. The river suppression floor celebrated with songs and dances as Qin Mu followed Ling Yuxiu into the building. He saw dancers dancing inside the buildings, and whenever their fingers glided through the air, it would give off crisp tinkling sounds. It was the sound of their vital chi. Every head raise and every stomp of the feet accompanied the tempo of the music. Qin Mu clicked his tongue in wonder after seeing how the dancers could dance gracefully and use vital chi to make beautiful music. At the two sides of the building, there were numerous small tables where many out of the ordinary people sat down for the banquet, having a drinking party. Some were enjoying the song and dance while others were watching the flat stage on the lake enjoying the fight. The situation on the flat stage was very miserable. The copper muscles and iron bone youth was tortured beyond recognition. However, no one in the building stopped his torturer. Ling Yuxiu dragged Qin Mu directly to the small tables and sat down naturally without any regards to being an outsider. Sitting inside river suppression floor were strong practitioners from all over the world who were extraordinarily formidable. The sight of the two youths astonished them, but they didn't open their mouths to inquire. In their minds, this jade couple should be the disciples of some expert, taking the chance to come to river suppression floor to join in the fun and widen their horizons. On the small table were priceless, unique fruits and delicacies. There were priceless strange beasts that were cooked sumptuously, which were fresh and tender, causing Qin Mu's fingers to start moving uncontrollably. Since morning, he had been dragged by Granny C to sell the livestock and goods. Therefore he hasn't had anything to eat and had long been hungry. Qin Mu tasted the food in front of him and his eyes lit up. He felt that even his tongue was going to melt from the deliciousness and couldn't keep his attention off the delicacies. On the other hand, Ling Yuxiu, who said that she was hungry, only ate 2 mouthfuls and placed down her chopsticks, then watched Qin Mu gorging himself with great interest. Seated at the small table beside Qin Mu was the cult mistress whose beauty stirred the entire city. She also looked interestingly at Qin Mu and the young girl beside him. Is she Granny C or not? Qin Mu thought to himself. Other than her, there was also another person glancing towards Qin Mu from time to time. Qin Mu felt his gaze and raised his head to have a look, becoming slightly stunned. The person was wearing an armor and didn't remove it even when attending a banquet. He was the young general Qin Feiyue, who he had the affinity to meet twice on Surging River. Qin Feiyue is also here? He didn't return to Eternal Peace Empire. Qin Mu was astonished and continued to tackle the food in front of him. Ling Yuxiu snickered. That little general keeps looking at you, does he know you? Qin Mu swallowed down the food and gave it some thought before replying. We had the affinity to meet twice. There's also a chubby fatty 7th young master beside him. However, I don't know where he went. Ling Yuxiu got angry and pinched him on his arm. Qin Mu didn't know what this girl was angry about and thought to himself, this girl sure is weird. The General Qin Feiyue is also pretty weird. When this girl pinched me, he stopped himself from almost jumping up. The one getting pinched is me, and not him, so why is he feeling the pain? Suddenly an elder spoke. City Lord, is that your son outside? What great skills. I've heard that young Master Tingyue is the strongest martial arts practitioners among the younger generation in Border Dragon City. Now that I've seen it today, he is indeed extraordinary. Fu Yundi smiled. You've praised him too much, Elder Bai Shan. My son had only learned some coarse techniques, making a fool about himself. That Elder Bai Shan beamed and replied, that's not true. I've heard that young Master Tingyue is the best out of everyone in the radius of 300 miles. Just last year, young Master Tingyue had fought 352 battles and killed all 352 practitioners that had came from all over. Not a single person was able to escape his grasp. For him to have such battle prowess at this young age, he's surely impressive. Qin Mu raised his eyebrows and continued to focus on eating. Fu Yundi immediately smiled. My son had only killed the abandoned people of Great Ruins. If it was people from outside, my son would still show mercy. Elder Bai Shan smiled. The abandoned people do not lack strong practitioners. Young Master Tingyue's skills are indeed impressive. He exclaimed in admiration after he finished speaking. Fu Yundi chuckled. My son is an honest person and never forced others to compete with him. He only invited the abandoned people of Great Ruins to come forth and fight in the arena by promising them money. He can't help it that humans die for riches just as birds die for food. The abandoned people came continuously to challenge my son only to all throw their lives away. These 100 dragon coins of my son have yet to be spent. Speaking about this, my son sure knows how to live his life. When he was done, he laughed out loudly. Everyone also started laughing along with him. At this moment, a black-faced elder suddenly stopped smiling and spoke over everyone's laughter with his booming voice. Cult mistress, after studying great educational heavenly devil scriptures for so many years, I'm sure you will open our eyes today, right? The slim black-faced elder in front of Qin Mu had a haggard look. His eyes were lifeless and he sat there like a burnt charcoal. However, his voice was extremely loud. Once he had finished, the gaze of everyone in the building focused on cult mistress, who was brimming with charm. Qin Mu immediately put down his ivory chopsticks and closed his mouth. Still, he couldn't help it but to chew food in his mouth secretly. Swallowing the food into his stomach, the youth hesitated for a moment and couldn't resist picking up the ivory chopsticks again to grab another piece of lungfish meat and quickly stuff it into his mouth. The elder, who was like black charcoal, erupted in anger and stared angrily at Qin Mu. Stop eating! The cult mistress beside Qin Mu burst out in a laugh. So it was Venerable He. Why is there a need to be angry, Venerable He? City Lord invited us to eat, so why can't he eat? Am I right, City Lord? Fu Yundi coughed and smiled. The distinguished meeting is also a banquet to let everyone here to have a taste of the delicacies here in my Border Dragon City. It's only natural to let the guests eat to their content. Cult mistress gave a gentle laugh as she picked up a bright red fruit and placed it in her mouth. She then leisurely cleaned her slender lily-white hands and with interest, she looked at Qin Mu gorging down food. Ling Yuxiu was also very astonished. She totally didn't expect Qin Mu to be able to continue eating after what had happened. Not long later, Qin Mu was half full. He gave it some thought, then took out a piece of oil paper and the dry rations from inside. He then picked up a few tender and delicious food and wrapped them up carefully. Venerable He, who was like black charcoal, couldn't resist chiding. Little brat, you can't finish them and you still want to take them away? Qin Mu replied embarrassingly. My granny, grandpa blind, and I only entered the city today. We only had dry rations on our way here and haven't eaten anything. The food here is very delicious, and since my granny and grandpa Blind's teeth aren't good, I want to bring some back for them." Once he had said that, he looked at Cult Mistress again and had a suspicion in his heart. Is she Granny C or not? Wait a minute. Isn't the smell of this rouge the same one I bought with Granny C? A gentle expression flashed across Cult Mistress's eyes as she seemed to be moved and smiled. "You are a filial boy, I'm liking you more and more." Everyone in the building looked like they were watching a laughing matter as they were filled with pity for Qin Mu. Cult Mistress was originally a famous demoness and was most irritated by mumbo-jumbos like filial piety. This little brat is going to die miserably. Venerable He waited for Qin Mu to finish packing the food before saying coldly, "Are you full?" Qin Mu honestly replied, "Half full." Venerable He gave a snort in anger. His snort traveled out and rattled all 100 windows of river suppression floor. Qin Mu was impressed and exclaimed in admiration, "Senior's cultivation sure is vigorous, I'm unable to do that." The veins on Venerable He's forehead twitched as he suppressed his rage and quietly waited for Qin Mu to finish eating. Cult Mistress, who was also smiling throughout this whole event, also placed down her ivory chopsticks and stopped eating. Venerable He let out the murky breath he had been holding back in his lungs and said coldly, "Now everyone is full? Can we talk about business properly?" Everyone's gaze in the building turned snow-bright and landed on Cult Mistress. One smile from Cult Mistress could charm 100 beings, causing the eyes of everyone in the building to become brighter than before. "Venerable He, even if I give the great educational Heavenly Devil scriptures, do you think you can leave Border Dragon Village alive? I'm afraid the City Lord would be the first to take your life. Furthermore, I doubt the rest would allow you to walk out of Great Ruins alive." Venerable He stood up and the vital chi behind him became extremely black, forming a fiendish four-armed heavenly devil behind his head. To use the vital chi at such a high level and even form the vital chi to show devil god. This kind of method was no weaker than Fu Yundi's eightfold heavenly god technique. Venerable He swept his gaze on everyone and coldly said, "If the Holy Bible of Heavenly Devil Cult lands in my hand, it would be mine. Whoever that dares to covet it, aren't you afraid you would be slain by me?" Everyone in the building smiled but remained silent. Cult Mistress snickered. "There are noble guests from Eternal Peace Empire and experts that are hiding in Great Ruins. How many of them can you exterminate? This young general must be from Eternal Peace Empire, am I right?" The one she had said was indeed Qin Feiyue as she smiled. "I've long heard that Imperial Preceptor is the #1 man below gods, so his disciples shouldn't be ordinary neither." Qin Feiyue bowed slightly. "Little General is Qin Feiyue. My teacher is indeed Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor. However, I'm not here for Cult Mistress, nor I am here for great educational Heavenly Devil scriptures. Cult Mistress may be the most beautiful woman in the world and great educational Heavenly Devil scriptures may be the way to become a god, but Imperial Preceptor doesn't care about that." His tone had a natural arrogance. As the #1 man below gods, Imperial Preceptor doesn't care about any techniques, even if it's the Devil Cult's sacred book which could help one becomes a god. Suddenly a voice sneered. "This is Great Ruins and not Eternal Peace Empire. Who cares what the Imperial Preceptor thinks?" Qin Feiyue gave off a murderous intent and looked towards the source of the voice. The person talking was seated opposite of him, and was a burly man with a curly beard. His shirt was half opened as he sat carefreely. He was grabbing food to eat while rubbing the dirt on his belly with another hand. With just a few rubs he managed to rub out a pitch-black ball and just flicked it somewhere randomly. Qin Feiyue frowned and gave an expression of disgust. "Uncivilized people of Great Ruins are simply uncouth. There's no need to get angry with him. When the Imperial Preceptor's great army arrives, any demons or monsters will have to subdue to him." He then took another look at the girl beside Qin Mu and felt like he was sitting on pins and needles. Why did 7th Princess go to mingle with the youth from disabled elderly village? Just now the princess even pinched him and seemed too close to him. If words of this were to spread out, where would the face of the imperial family go?